The 20th century was a century of modernization, militarization, and war on a scale that's never been seen before, and hopefully will never be seen again. Visited death upon the nations of Europe and the world on a scale and in a manner that is utterly inhumane. Now, reading H.G.Wells's The Shape of Things to Come, published 1933, we are told about the Great War and how the time of tranquility and peace, basically, that lasted during the later half of the 19th century, from about the 1870s on, how the system of economics that came to control the world at this time created the inevitable byproduct that we have in modern times, which is the militarization and the anti-freedom, the lack of civil liberties, the draconian society that we see developing all around us in the 21st century. But these are all logical progressions out of the free competition and profit-seeking models that have been dominating the world economically. Now, granted, communism has found its way into the world, and it's modified radically in China now, but they're still a communist nation. Ask yourself this: you don't see China running around all over the world trying to, act like the world police either, do you? You see that they've got one of the world's fastest growing economies, soon to be the world's most powerful economy. India may actually surpass them, I don't know. That'll be the story of the 21st century. But what I see has truly caused this lack of humanity in the world, this ability to send hundreds of thousands and millions of men into the gaping iron jaws of death to be slaughtered in a very inhumane fashion, wholesale, like cogs in a machine, nothing more than pieces on a board to be moved about by some corporate oligarchs to further their agendas for economic dominance and cultural dominance. Well, the reason why this has all been allowed to exist is because the individual human beings on this planet have long been without spirituality. They've been an empty, nihilistic lot who's been easy to control and manipulate. For thousands of years, the world's religions have established this lack of empowering the individual at the expense of empowering the church or the organization or the state. And going from the old world where we were dominated by the church to a world where we're dominated by the state, we're really in not any different circumstance. It's still a very nationalistic, a very fascist mentality where we draw divisions amongst other human beings, and we don't give them credit for having the same spirit or internal spark of life that is inside us. If we did, we couldn't so readily and easily dispatch with it. The tales of barbarity and war crimes and, well, just the atrocious level that human beings can fall to is alarming, and it should act as the example of what we do not want to see develop in the 21st century. However, I see it rapidly escalating all around us in the world today. Divisions are being drawn, lines are being drawn, another big major conflict is in the works. However, the 21st century, just like the 20th century, is going to see a whole new type of war. The 21st century saw the invention of the Zeppelin, the airplanes, machine guns, smokeless powder, bombs, long-range missiles, nuclear weapons, all of this. Jets, supersonic jets, heat-seeking missiles. Now we've got lasers from outer space. We've got Operation Thor. They can fire tungsten carbide rods from outer space and create humongous, like, earthquakes and or volcanic eruptions. It's the level of weaponry and sophistication has grown exponentially because we are a militarized society. Now, the inevitable byproduct of a society, we're told by H.G.Wells, that drives its model off of open competition and for-profit is going to inevitably create a monopoly system dominated by one most efficient producer. And now we had the Sherman Antitrust Act that was put into law by FDR, or not by FDR, but by Teddy Roosevelt, which tried to limit some of this monopolization here in America. However, we have these things called multinational corporations, you see, and if you truly track all the world's property ownership, you know, the rights to the resources and everything that's owned, the land, back to its original sources, or its actual ownership rather, should I say, in the modern world today, you're going to find that there's very few actual corporations who lay claim to all this. It's not open, it's not for all to be used for the benefit of all. It's for some to be used for the benefit of some at the detriment of the others. Because you see, anytime somebody's deriving a profit from something that they're doing, they're extracting a loss, or imparting a loss on the party who had to give them the profit. Now, unless the party who is willing to part with, you know, whatever loss that they're able to, is able to at least make up that loss, or, you know, even increase it and make a profit back themselves, it's totally not worth it. However, if your only motive in life is seeking profit or gain, you look at everyone and everything as a tool to gain for yourself. Instead of how can you help them, you know, how can you be of service, it's how can you make them serve. And we've got two classes of society today, mainly, that it's devolved into. We've got the workers, the slaves, the wage slaves, who we're stuck in rental properties. We're paying for food that's delivered and comes from industrial sources. We're no longer able to provide and sustain for ourselves. We're utterly dependent upon a system that is controlled by people who own the rental properties that we live in, who own the businesses that we work for, who own the shipping channels that ship the food and the merchandise that we buy and that we exchange the goods from point A to point B. They control and manipulate the energy market and the government through things like, you know, campaign finance and bribes. A bribe is nothing more than a lobbyist going to speak to your representative and taking him out to a nice fancy schmancy dinner and promising that, well, if he passes this bill, he'll get votes and he'll get support, you know, because that's all that matters, right? Yeah, that's all that matters. This modern world, the 21st century, has already been plagued by non-stop war. Officially, we declared an end to combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan after almost 14 years. Those wars didn't extract the casualties that, say, the Great War in World War I or World War II did, because we've become more efficient in the use of our troops and in the fighting of war. Just like our economy. Our economy is based upon driving efficiency. So in the open market, the most efficient wins. And that ultimately means that the amount of output per input increases. So the amount that one worker can create goes up and up and up and up and up, until eventually that worker creates a method to remove himself from the system completely, which is what we're doing today. Now, I see in the next few decades changes coming that are going to be radical and dramatic. Economic changes, big changes, because the development of the robot revolution and artificial intelligence and things like that are going to make humans more or less obsolete. And we're going to see more unemployment than we've ever seen before, ever. It's going to make the Great Depression look like a nice vacation, almost a joke. And this comes from Norbert Wiener's 1955 book, Human Use of Human Beings, where he predicted all this, and I tend to agree. When we create something that doesn't require sleep or food or vacation or rest to work, and it also doesn't have the same problems that humans do of alcoholism or drug abuse or depression or what have you. It doesn't perceive the situation. It doesn't understand what it's doing. It can't have some existential crisis, say as a soldier develops post-traumatic stress, or can mutiny, or even say, no, I'm not going to participate in this anymore. I see what's going on ethically in the world as completely and totally wrong, and I conscientiously object. I remove myself from this, from participating in it. A robot cannot do that, can never do that. That's one of the main reasons why World War II stopped, is that there was so much death and mass and genocide taking place that most of the men stopped fighting. They lost the will to fight. But robots will never lose the will to fight, and they will never question their orders. They will indiscriminately kill civilians. They will indiscriminately do whatever you program them to do. This is the danger that we face today, and our military is pushing for it. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project, which has one of the largest clandestine or black budgets that exists, meaning we don't have any idea or oversight of where all the money going into that project goes, how it's spent, what it's being developed on. We could literally be paying for our own, enslavement and ultimate, demise, truly. And to think that the government, has your best interests at heart is a complete and total joke. The government has its best interests at heart, and its best interests are in maintaining the status quo of the current economic system that drives for profit, for division, militarization, and ultimately we see it driving into the draconian control structures of the world today, where all civil liberties are being removed. Everyone is being given a number and being made instantaneously accountable or responsible for maintaining the government's official standard of behavior, of thought, of everything. In fact, they've taken over the World Wide Web and made it a quote-unquote public utility here in the United States of America that's to be regulated arbitrarily by a government-appointed commission, supposedly under the guise of maintaining neutrality. You know how you maintain neutrality is in an open market of ideas, which is what the World Wide Web is. A monopoly would develop, i.e. of truth. And that truth would come organically from the bottom up on the World Wide Web, because there's more people speaking from that direction than there is from the top. You see, because traditionally, the speaking has always come from the top, from the mouthpiece of the pulpit or the podium. Now, with the World Wide Web, the voice of the people can be heard. However, I truly believe that era has passed us. The era of free speech that existed during the brief window the World Wide Web was more or less free is gone. Now, speech will be monitored and controlled very much just like it was in 1984. The content that is promoted and disseminated will be controlled, and it already is being controlled. All of the channels on YouTube that used to be wildly popular and that would be wildly popular today, well, just not getting the views, the circulation, the spreading, the impact, the influence that we once had. And this is all part of a control system, a control grid. The internet has long been used also as a means to monitor, control, segregate, and separate society into nice and neat little networks that the government can handle succinctly and deal with specifically. And also they have the ability to introduce memes into the public consciousness much more efficiently now, so that they can quote-unquote stereotype the collective conscious exactly how they see fit. However, they didn't quite anticipate the huge private publishing, the self-publishing movement that happened. Truly, it was a mini enlightenment has occurred over the last 20 years that the internet has been up and running. This mini enlightenment has resulted in the spreading of knowledge, which is eradicating the old dogmas and the old falsehoods that have been dominating the minds of the collective consciousness for 150 years, because people have only been receiving their information, informed, their programming from churches, from the government, from their universities, and from news media outlets for the last 150 years. Very rarely has there been any independent source of, thought or conjecture, apart from, say, your private coffee houses or your get-together meetings or your secret societies like the Masons or what have you, where they can actually discuss things that are real and pertinent, and might actually have an effect. And people say, oh, the Masons are responsible for all this. I say, no, the Masons, just like anything else, just like the church, the Christian church originally, was hijacked. It's totally hijacked. Completely and totally hijacked. What needs to happen in the 21st century in order for us to have any hope is a rebirth of spiritual knowledge, going away from the archaic, the dead idea of purely material determinism, that we're nothing but matter, that we're not actually, ethereal energy or consciousness, all is mind, as Hermes says, and recognizing that we are all connected, that we are all one mind, we are all integral parts of this one mind, and we've self-divided ourselves through ego and through projections of fear and ignorance. Have an open mind, an open heart, and a lack of fear in anything that you don't know. If you don't know it, if it's foreign to you, approach it. Get to know it. Don't be credulous. Don't be skeptical. Don't be hateful. If it's different, take it as it is. Study it objectively, unbiased as you possibly can. Try to see everything from as many possible different perspectives as you can to get a full view of reality, so that you're not manipulated, so that you're not controlled. Question why you believe what it is that you believe. Question it is how that you were convinced to believe what it is that you believe. Look around the world, look at the world around you, and think, is it engineered to create a certain type of mindset or mentality or belief in me for an outcome for someone else? Am I actually being used? Am I being manipulated? Am I a tool? I love you all. Please share this video. I'm thankful that you allowed your intuition to guide you to it, and I'm so grateful to the law of attraction that has brought us together, and it is bringing this enlightenment to fruition throughout humanity. Let us keep it going. Let us keep pushing. Let's not allow these changes from the draconian power structures to undermine what we've built over the last 20 years, this enlightenment, this spreading, this awakening to quote-unquote truth, if you will. And like Bruce Lee says, truth is something that's very fluid. It's like a stream, it's a current. It changes with its geography, with time. And the dominant truth of the day is not the dominant truth of tomorrow. So it's in understanding this that we don't get caught in clinging to things, and it's in clinging to things that we struggle and we get torn apart. So allow us to let go and let good take over. Peace.